It was the kind of conversation you never expect to have, especially not with your parents. But then again, I should have known better. I had spent my whole life being the second-choice daughter, the invisible one in comparison to Emily, the golden child. I had grown used to being overshadowed, being the one whose needs were always secondary, who never quite measured up. But what happened that night, what they asked me to do, it was a betrayal on a level I never could have anticipated. It was a warm Friday evening. The kind of evening that felt like everything should be okay, like the world was calm, and we were supposed to be enjoying a family dinner. It was supposed to be a peaceful, normal night. But as soon as I sat down at the dinner table, I could feel it. The tension in the air. Something was off. My parents were sitting across from me, eyes darting between each other. And Emily, of course, was sitting at the head of the table, a soft smile on her face. She always had that smile, the one that made her seem untouchable. The one that made everyone around her feel like they had to accommodate her needs. Mom cleared her throat first, breaking the silence. "Zoe," she said, her tone measured but flat, "we need to talk." "About what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, though I had no idea what was coming. Dad's gaze flicked nervously to Emily, then back to me. "We've been thinking a lot about the future. About family." He paused, then added, "And we've come to a decision." Emily didn't say anything. She just watched me with that calm, almost calculating expression she always wore when the conversation wasn't about her. She knew what was coming, and she knew I wouldn't like it. She always knew. "You're the healthiest one of us," Mom continued, her voice devoid of any empathy, "and we think it's best if you take a break from college and carry the baby for Emily." The words didn't even make sense. My mind immediately rejected them. "What? What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice shaking. I must have heard her wrong. There was no way my own mother was asking me to be a surrogate for Emily. To carry her child. Emily, the golden child, the one who always got what she wanted, was staring at me now with the kind of look that felt like she was trying to convince me it was no big deal. "It's not a big deal, Zoe," Emily said, her voice sweet but firm. "You're young. You're healthy. You're not in a relationship. It won't interfere with your life. You'll be doing us a huge favor." A favor? This wasn't a favor. This was a violation. This was using me as an incubator, as a tool for their perfect little family dream. I stood up from the table, my heart pounding. No. Absolutely not. Mom's eyes narrowed, and Dad's face hardened. "Zoe, don't be ridiculous. We're asking you to help us out. You're the only one who can do this." I could feel the anger rising inside me, bubbling up and threatening to spill over. "You think I'm just supposed to drop everything for you? For Emily? For her? No. You don't get to use me like this." Emily's face twisted slightly, the illusion of calm cracking. "It's not like that. You're family. Don't you want to help us?" "No," I spat. "I don't. I've spent my whole life helping you. Supporting you. Being your second choice. You've never asked me what I wanted. I'm done being your backup plan." The room fell into a heavy silence. Emily looked almost hurt, but I could see the anger in her eyes. She wasn't used to being told no. My parents were silent, unsure of what to do next. I could feel the weight of their disappointment hanging in the air, suffocating me. "You're being selfish, Zoe," Mom said, her voice cold. "No," I said firmly, "I'm finally putting myself first." Without saying another word, I walked out of the room. The weight of their anger followed me down the hall, but I didn't care. I slammed the door behind me and locked it. I needed space. I needed to breathe. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my room, numb, replaying the conversation in my mind. Could I have said something different? Was there a way to make them understand that I had a life of my own? But deep down, I knew. I had made the right choice. I wasn't their backup anymore. I wasn't going to let them use me just because it was convenient. But the fallout was only just beginning. The following morning was the beginning of the end. I woke up to silence. No messages. No calls. No attempts to check in. That's when I knew they had made their decision. By the time I got to my first class, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "We're canceling your tuition payments. You'll have to handle your own expenses from now on." I blinked at the screen, feeling a sharp pang of panic settle in my stomach. Was this really happening? Was I being cut off completely? I called my mom immediately, but she didn't pick up. I tried Dad. Nothing. I texted Emily. No reply. I walked out of class early, trying to keep myself composed as I rushed across campus to the nearest coffee shop. My thoughts were a whirlwind. I couldn't even comprehend what was happening. All I knew was that my parents had just cut me off. The few financial crumbs I had been holding on to were gone. The safety net they had promised was nothing more than smoke and mirrors. The first thing I did was check my bank account. The few $100s I had saved up for the semester were gone. Transferred to some account I didn't recognize. I was completely, utterly alone. I remember standing in that coffee shop, gripping the counter and trying to breathe. How was I going to pay rent? How was I going to pay for textbooks? How was I supposed to survive without their help? It didn't take long for me to realize what needed to happen next. I had no choice but to take on more work. I couldn't depend on them. Not now. Not ever again. I found a job at a diner that night. I was already exhausted from the emotional toll of the day. But I pushed myself through the interview. The manager seemed kind enough and hired me on the spot. It wasn't much, just a part-time gig, but it would help me scrape by for the time being. But that wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed something consistent, something I could rely on. I drove across town to a 24-hour convenience store and asked about a second job. I didn't have a choice. I had to make the money. I had to finish school. I would not let them break me. And so I worked. I worked until my eyes were dry and my body was aching. I worked 2 jobs, 6 days a week, balancing school on top of it all. There was no time for me to rest. There was no time for anything that wasn't work or school. But I didn't care. I was determined. I knew that getting my degree would be my ticket out. I just had to survive. No matter what it took. And I would survive. The days blurred together in a haze of exhaustion, and somehow, I managed to keep my head above water. It wasn't easy. 2 jobs, a full course load, and a world that seemed determined to knock me down at every turn. But I didn't let it. I refused to. I'd never had a chance to be a typical college student. I didn't have the luxury of late-night study sessions in coffee shops, nor did I have time to join any campus groups or make friends. My life was strictly divided into work and school. And even then, I often found myself questioning whether this was truly the right path. Was it worth it? Was it worth all the sweat, the tears, the sleepless nights? There were times when I didn't know if I could continue. My body ached constantly. My mind was foggy. Every day, I fought to stay awake through classes, my eyelids heavy from lack of sleep. I had no social life, no support system. My parents had made sure of that when they cut me off. And Emily? She never reached out to ask if I was okay. No, she was too busy with her perfect life, her perfect future, to give a damn about her selfish sister. I still remember the first time I missed a class because I just couldn't go. I had been up all night working a double shift at the diner, and I couldn't keep my eyes open during the lecture. My professor noticed and after class asked if everything was all right. I told him I was just tired, and he nodded sympathetically but said he was concerned. It didn't feel good to be on the receiving end of pity, but at least someone saw how hard I was working, how hard I was fighting to stay afloat. There were moments of darkness, where the weight of everything made it hard to breathe. I would lie in bed, my face buried in the pillow, and I'd cry. Not for my parents. Not for Emily. But for me. For the life I was supposed to have. For the opportunities one had been robbed of, all because I wasn't their perfect daughter. All because I couldn't just be a surrogate for my sister, sacrifice my dreams for hers. But then there were the moments of triumph. The moments that kept me going. The grades I earned through sheer determination. The shifts I pulled at the diner when I thought I couldn't stand for one more minute, but I did. The time when I got an email from the headhunter who had been tracking my progress, telling me they had a job opportunity for me after graduation. It wasn't my dream job yet, but it was a step toward it. It was a light at the end of the tunnel. I made it. Somehow, I made it. By the time I graduated, I had secured a full-time position at a marketing firm, a place where I knew I could grow. My hard work had paid off. I was no longer the girl left behind, the girl ignored. I had carved out a place for myself, on my own terms. It felt incredible to know that I had achieved this entirely on my own. No handouts. No pity. Just me. But the scar that was left by my family's rejection would always be there, no matter how much I succeeded. Their absence in my life would linger, even as I moved forward. I knew I could never forgive them, not fully. They didn't deserve my forgiveness, not after everything they had done to me. I had been more than enough, and they had never seen that. Graduation day arrived faster than I expected, and with it, the mix of relief and anticipation. I walked across the stage, my gown flowing behind me, my heart pounding in my chest. My eyes scanned the audience, and for the first time in years, I felt proud. I had done it. Despite everything, I had made it through. The whole world stretched before me, ripe with possibilities. The reality of my situation hit a few days later, as I sat in my new apartment, the one I'd moved into with the first paycheck from my new job. I hadn't had time to furnish it properly. So I sat in an empty living room, the walls bare except for a few boxes and a couch. But I didn't care. I was free. I was my own person, not defined by anyone else. It felt better than any graduation ceremony, better than any pat on the back. I was now working full-time as a junior account manager for a rapidly growing firm. It wasn't my dream job yet, but it was a start. I knew I had to pay my dues, learn the ropes, and earn my place. I worked long hours, sometimes staying late, sometimes working weekends. I poured myself into my work because it was the one thing that made sense, the one thing that was entirely mine. But even as I started building my career, I couldn't escape the nagging thought in the back of my mind: what if they came back? What if they needed me again? I buried that thought, telling myself that I didn't need them. I didn't want to need them. They had made their choice when they cut me off, and I wasn't going to allow myself to fall into their trap again. As weeks turned into months, I started making a name for myself in the firm. I impressed my bosses with my work ethic, my ability to think outside the box, and my knack for managing clients. My colleagues respected me, and my paychecks grew larger. He had an affair with the surrogate. It's a mess, Zoe. She needs someone. You're the only one who can help her now. The silence in the room was deafening. My brain felt sluggish, as if processing these words was an insurmountable task. Emily's life was a whirlwind of her own making, and yet, now, it seemed like she expected me to swoop in and fix it. Fix her mistakes. Fix her life. I wasn't a savior. I wasn't some backup for when things went wrong. I wasn't the one who was supposed to be there for her now. But, like always, my mother persisted. You know, we're not asking for much. Just, please come visit. Maybe talk to her. She feels so alone right now. You're the only person who might understand. I could practically hear the unspoken plea in her voice. The please, Zoe, you're our only hope that hung in the air like a stifling weight. Mom, I began, forcing my words through clenched teeth. I don't think you understand. I've worked my ass off to get where I am. I've fought for every inch of success. And now you want me to throw it all away to fix Emily's mess? After everything that's happened? No. I'm not doing this. The words were sharp, but they felt necessary. My mother stayed quiet for a long moment, and I almost wondered if she'd hung up. But then she spoke again, quieter this time, almost apologetic. I know you've worked hard, Zoe. But Emily. She's struggling. You're the only family she has left. We're asking for your help. Just a little. I could feel the tension rising in me. She hadn't asked for me in years. It had always been Emily, always been her shining example of success. And now, when things had fallen apart, they expected me to pick up the pieces? My stomach churned, and I felt a knot form in my throat. I'll think about it, I said coldly, cutting the conversation short. But as I hung up the phone, I knew that I didn't need to think about it. I knew what my answer would be. The question was whether I could remain strong in the face of the pressure they would surely put on me. I didn't hear from them for a few days, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they would be back. They always came back when they needed something. And this time, it wasn't just for money or for favors. This time, it was for me. Or, at least, what I could give them. A week later, I received a text from Emily. I had been expecting it, but that didn't make it any easier. It read, "Can we talk?" I hadn't seen her in years. Not since I walked away from everything, family included. She was still the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in everyone's eyes, even when I was the one left to pick up the slack. But now, it seemed she was desperate. And I couldn't decide whether to feel pity for her or to be disgusted by the way she'd manipulated everyone around her for so long. I reluctantly agreed to meet her. I figured I might as well get this over with. But I wasn't prepared for what I walked into. I met her at a small cafe, a neutral ground. She was sitting by the window when I arrived, looking fragile, a shadow of the confident, self-assured sister I remembered. When she saw me, her face lit up with that all-too-familiar smile, but I could see the cracks beneath it. "Zoe," she said, standing up to greet me. "It's so good to see you." I stared at her for a long moment, taking in the woman she had become. She still had that same beauty, that same easy grace that had made her the center of attention her whole life. But there was something different about her now. The glimmer of perfection had faded. I didn't sit. Instead, I stayed standing, arms crossed. "What's this about, Emily?" I asked bluntly. She winced slightly but didn't back down. I need your help," she said, her voice quivering just a little. "I know I messed up. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. But I can't do this alone." "You never did anything alone," I shot back, my frustrations spilling out. "You always had Mom and Dad, always had everything handed to you. And now, after all these years, you want me to fix it for you?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't care. Not anymore. "Zoe, please," she begged. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I made mistakes, I know that. But my life is falling apart. I don't know where to turn." I studied her for a long moment, the anger and disappointment swirling inside me. She was asking me to clean up her mess. Again. And as I looked at her, I realized that nothing had changed. She was still the same selfish person she had always been, only now she had lost the one thing that had always defined her: control. "I'm not your backup, Emily," I said quietly, my voice firm. "I'm not going to fix your mistakes. You've had plenty of time to figure things out on your own." She stared at me for a long time, her face crumpling as the reality of my words set in. I wasn't the little sister anymore. I wasn't the one who would drop everything to help her. And in that moment, I finally saw it for what it was. Emily wasn't just asking for help. She was demanding it, just as she always had. And I was done. "I'm sorry," I said, turning on my heel. "But I'm not the person you think I am." As I left the cafe, I felt a strange sense of relief. No longer did I have to pretend. I had broken free of my family's expectations. And I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their toxic orbit. It had been days since that first call from my mother, but the requests kept coming. My phone buzzed constantly with messages, missed calls, and voicemails. Emily, Mom, Dad, they were relentless, but I stayed firm. I knew what they wanted, and I wasn't about to give in. That evening, I got a message from Emily. She had sent me a long text detailing her heartbreak, her marriage falling apart, the financial disaster, her sense of loss. It was all just one big plea for help. But all I felt was exhaustion. "Zoe, I need you now more than ever. Please, we're all struggling so much, and I don't know what to do. You've always been the strong one. Please, help me." I stared at the text for a long time. The words seemed familiar, so familiar, because they weren't new. This wasn't the first time Emily had come to me when things went wrong. But this time felt different. This time, it wasn't just her usual demands for attention or sympathy. She was asking for something much more important: money. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I tried to put my phone down, focus on my work, and drown out the constant noise of my family's needs. But my mind kept drifting back to them. I couldn't ignore the overwhelming feeling of responsibility that was being thrust upon me, as though my past sacrifices should automatically mean I had to fix this too. That night, as I sat on my couch, my phone rang again. This time, it was my father. I almost didn't answer, but I knew the call was coming, and I wasn't going to avoid it forever. "Zoe, we really need to talk," my dad's voice said on the other end, strained with anxiety. "What is it, Dad?" I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral, despite the tightness in my chest. "I know we've asked a lot of you in the past, but this time, it's serious. Emily. She's in a bad place. Her marriage is over, and now the surrogate situation is all messed up. We've spent everything trying to help her, and we don't know how we're going to make it. We're struggling, Zoe. We need your help, financially." I felt a sharp pang of frustration. "You spent everything on Emily's surrogate, and now you want me to bail you out? What about me, Dad? What about all the times I had to make sacrifices while you focused on Emily?" "We're sorry, Zoe," he continued, his voice softening. "We didn't realize it would get this bad. But you're the only one who can help us now. You're doing well, you've made it, and we're asking for your help." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm rising inside me. "I don't owe you this, Dad. I've built my life from nothing. I worked 2 jobs just to make it through college, and I'm finally where I want to be. You didn't think about that when you made these choices. You didn't think about what I would have to go through. I'm not going to sacrifice everything I've worked for just because you're in trouble now." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear the frustration and desperation in my father's breath. "Please, Zoe. This isn't just about Emily. Your mother and I, we don't know what we'll do without you. You've always been the one who could fix things. Don't walk away from us now." "I'm not going to be your safety net, Dad," I said, my voice trembling but resolute. "I've given you enough. You've had your chances to make it right, and now it's time for you to figure it out on your own." With that, I hung up the phone. I knew they wouldn't stop. They'd keep coming at me with guilt, with pleading, with more and more demands. But I had made up my mind. This time, I wouldn't be the one to fix it. The next few days were a blur of frantic calls, text messages, and emotional pleas. My mom tried calling me again, but I ignored it. Then came the messages from Emily, each one more desperate than the last. Zoe, please. I'm in so much pain. I have nowhere to turn. You're the only family I have left. Zoe, I know I've been selfish. But I can't get through this alone. I need your help. Please. I felt a lump form in my throat as I read them. But I refused to give in. I couldn't. Not again. Then, one afternoon, I walked into my apartment after a long day at work to find a voicemail from my mother. She sounded exhausted, drained of everything except her need. Zoe, we don't know what to do. The bank won't help us, and we've sold what we could. Please, honey. You're the only one who can help us now. We've always supported you. We've always been there for you. Don't turn your back on us when we need you most. I felt the weight of her words, but it didn't change anything. This wasn't about me turning my back on them. It was about me choosing my life over theirs. After years of sacrificing myself, of being the one they depended on, I had finally made a decision. I wouldn't let myself be their fallback plan anymore. I sat down on the couch, staring at my phone. And then, a thought occurred to me, a thought I hadn't considered before. What if they didn't stop? What if they didn't respect my decision? The next day, my mother came by unannounced. I was surprised to see her standing at my door, her eyes filled with pleading. Zoe, please, she said before I could say anything. We've reached the end of the line. You're the only one who can help us. If we don't get this money, we'll lose everything. Emily. Emily's devastated. She needs you. I can't do it, Mom, I said firmly. I'm not going to sacrifice my life for you anymore. I've done that for years. This time, it's about me. She stepped forward, tears welling in her eyes. You don't understand, Zoe. This isn't just about money. This is about saving our family. No, Mom. It's about saving yourself, I replied, my voice steady but filled with a quiet anger. I can't keep being the one you rely on to fix everything. You've made your choices, and now you need to live with the consequences. For a long moment, there was silence. My mother's face crumpled in frustration, then sorrow. She knew I was right. She knew I wasn't coming back to the family's expectations. Please don't cut us off, Zoe, she said softly, voice breaking. You're all we have left. I'm sorry, Mom, I said, my heart heavy. But I'm not your backup anymore. I'm done. She turned and left, and for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I wasn't going to be the one who always fixed things for them. I was going to take care of myself for once. The phone calls stopped after that. They didn't reach out again. And while I didn't feel relief right away, eventually I did. I had made my decision, and it was final. No matter how much they begged, no matter how much they needed me, I wouldn't go back. I had worked too hard to get here. I wouldn't let them take that away from me.